Most men think attraction is about charm, compliments, or endless attention. They chase, they plead, they perform, and women grow bored or indifferent. But there's a truth most men will never understand. Fear of loss is far more powerful than desire itself. When a woman senses you are untouchable, a prize, a man who will not bend, she doesn't just want you. She fears losing you. Let me be clear. This isn't manipulation. This is Machiavellian psychology applied to modern attraction. Today, you'll learn 5 truths that will shift your mindset and make her feel exactly that. By the end, you won't just attract attention, you'll command it, and she will subtly fear a world without you. Truth 1. Presence over effort. Most men are trapped in the illusion that attention equals affection. They believe that constant texting, repeated calls, and over-explaining themselves will make a woman care. They chase reactions, desperate for validation, like moths circling a flame. Machiavelli, however, understood a truth far more potent. Influence is rarely earned through effort. It is commanded through strategic presence. Presence is not mere visibility. It is a force that imprints itself on her mind, creating tension, curiosity, and subtle obsession. You want her to feel your absence before she feels your presence. That small, nagging thought, "Where is he? What is he doing?" is more intoxicating than hours of conversation. This tension is not accidental. It is carefully engineered. Presence is about choosing the right moments to appear, like a shadow passing just beyond reach. Noticeable, magnetic, and unforgettable. Influence comes not from constant action, but from selective, strategic visibility. The man who overwhelms with messages diminishes his aura. He becomes ordinary, predictable, replaceable. The man who appears selectively, with purpose and unpredictability, commands attention effortlessly. His absence becomes a presence in itself. Her mind fills with speculation, curiosity, and desire, creating fear of loss. Imagine 2 men in a parallel scenario. The first man texts daily, sends long messages explaining his feelings, and chases every reaction. He is everywhere, yet she forgets him between interactions. The second man disappears for a day, invests that time in his life, and then returns calmly. He shares a brief, fascinating story, a victory at work, a sudden adventure, or a witty observation about life. She cannot stop thinking about him. The absence created space for intrigue, for fascination, for psychological attachment. This is presence, refined and deliberate. Practical action. Tomorrow, practice the art of intentional scarcity. Limit your availability without announcing it. Focus on your life, your achievements, your passions. Let the world see that your time is valuable, that your presence is not guaranteed. Every moment she notices your absence, a small seed of fear is planted, a fear of missing out on you. You do not need to explain, justify, or prove anything. Your life itself, lived fully and unapologetically, becomes the magnet she cannot resist. Remember, men expend effort. Kings command presence. When you understand this, you stop chasing and you start drawing. A subtle, silent power that few men ever master. Truth 2. Master emotional detachment. Most men sabotage their own influence through emotional overinvestment. They panic when she doesn't respond immediately. They overanalyze every word, and they reveal insecurities that erode attraction. Machiavelli recognized a simple, brutal truth. Predictable emotions are a weakness. A man who reacts in predictable ways can be controlled, manipulated, and ultimately dismissed. Emotional unpredictability, on the other hand, creates tension, fascination, and subtle fear, the kind that makes a woman wonder whether she can ever fully capture you. True emotional detachment is not coldness. It is strategic control. It is the art of making your inner world impenetrable without seeming distant, of remaining calm, confident, and magnetic, even when her words or actions might provoke others. When she realizes she cannot dictate your feelings, she unconsciously begins to chase, to test, to desire. Because uncertainty breeds power, and power breeds attraction. Imagine two men in identical circumstances. The first man sees her flirtation and panics. He texts obsessively, over-explains himself, and tries to manufacture connection. She loses interest almost immediately. He is easy to predict, easy to control. The second man notices the same flirtation, but remains calm. He smiles, pauses, and turns his focus back to his own world. She cannot tell what he will do next. That tiny gap of uncertainty, the unknown, is what fuels subconscious fascination and fear of loss. Picture a scenario at a social gathering. A woman sends clear signals of interest, subtle touches, playful teasing. The average man would respond with urgency, seeking reassurance, attempting to impress. The detached man, however, responds with measured acknowledgement, a smile, a brief comment, then returns to his own pursuits. Over time, she finds herself drawn to him, attempting to provoke a reaction, trying to crack the calm surface he presents. She senses that her actions do not command him, and the tension, subtle, almost invisible, is more intoxicating than any direct pursuit. Practical action. Tomorrow, practice the art of controlled observation. When she provokes, teases, or signals, resist the urge to react immediately. Speak with curiosity, intrigue, and calm authority. Allow silence to communicate more than words ever could. In key moments, your stillness, your measured restraint, and your refusal to be emotionally manipulated become your most magnetic tools. Every pause, every moment of composure, signals that you are sovereign over your own emotions and she cannot hold sway over them. Remember, men surrender their power through reaction. Masters command it through detachment. Emotional control is the hidden lever of attraction, a subtle, quiet force that makes women fear losing you before you ever need to speak a word of warning. Truth 3. Scarcity creates power. Human desire is not drawn to abundance. It is ignited by rarity. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. What is easily obtained is easily dismissed. Constant availability, instant responses, and perpetual compliance erode attraction. Scarcity, on the other hand, creates magnetic tension, compelling attention, and subtly amplifying value in her mind. When a man is not always accessible, he becomes an enigma. When he prioritizes himself over immediate gratification, he becomes irreplaceable. Scarcity is not about playing childish games, it is about strategic self-prioritization. A man who places his life, goals, and ambitions above constant responsiveness signals to the world and to her that his existence is full, meaningful, and independent. This independence is irresistible. She notices the gap between her desires and your attention, and that gap is what triggers fear. Fear of losing you, fear of being replaced, fear of missing a life she cannot access fully. Consider two men planning a date. The first man agrees to every suggestion she makes, adjusting his schedule, answering instantly, showing eagerness. She enjoys the time, but feels no tension, no urgency. Her mind never registers scarcity. The second man, however, subtly cancels once, prioritizes a personal goal, and reappears unexpectedly with calm confidence. Suddenly, she notices him in a new way. Questions surface. Why does he not need me? Why isn't he chasing like others? That tiny absence, that deliberate focus on his life, plants fear of loss, a psychological magnet pulling her attention toward him. Practical action. Tomorrow, practice intentional scarcity. Focus on your passions, your work, and your social life. Don't bend to immediate requests or demands. Allow her to wonder where you are, what you are doing, and who you might be with. Let curiosity build naturally. Even small absences, executed consistently, transform your presence into something precious and irreplaceable. Every moment she notices your world continues without her is a moment her mind begins to assign higher value to your presence. Remember, men chase, men overcommit, men overexpose. Masters of influence prioritize themselves, letting scarcity do the work of attraction. When you cultivate this skill, you no longer need to impress through effort. Your value speaks through absence, and your presence becomes a prize she fears losing. Truth 4. Unseen depths. Our intimidating women are instinctively drawn to what they cannot fully grasp, and they fear losing men whose minds and lives remain partially hidden. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. True power lies in layers, in the ability to reveal without exposing, to be predictable in self-worth, but unpredictable in action. When a man cultivates depth, he becomes a puzzle she cannot solve, a mind she cannot dominate, and a life she cannot fully possess. That subtle fear, the fear of the unattainable, is what solidifies attraction at its deepest level. Depth is not about deception, it is about strategic intrigue. A man does not overshare, he does not explain every decision, and he never hands over his entire story. Instead, he hints, he alludes, he teases the edges of his mind and life. Every casual reference to a personal achievement, every subtle nod to ambitious plans, every enigmatic remark is a thread she pulls at endlessly in her imagination. Human curiosity craves mystery, especially when that mystery is intelligent, intentional, and untamed. A man who is fully transparent is ordinary. A man who is partially revealed is irresistibly magnetic. The more she senses layers, the more her mind becomes entangled in speculation. What is he really thinking? What does he do when I'm not around? What does his life truly look like? This mental pursuit is invisible, psychological, and infinitely more effective than any verbal or material effort. Fear of loss is born not from what she sees, but from what she cannot reach. Imagine a man casually mentioning he's leading a personal project without explaining the details, or hinting at ambitious future plans with a simple, confident remark. "I've got some things in motion that will change the way I see the world." He does not elaborate. He smiles, pauses, and moves on. She cannot help but fill in the blanks with her imagination. Every guess she makes about him is a thread she pulls, a subtle acknowledgement that his world is bigger, deeper, and less accessible than hers. That is the allure of unseen depths, the fear that she cannot fully control, predict, or possess him. Practical action. Practice strategic revelation. Speak in ways that suggest depth without revealing everything. Share accomplishments casually. Drop hints about your ambitions, and allow silence or subtlety to communicate the rest. Let her mind wander in the gaps you leave. Every moment she tries to mentally map you and fails, her desire grows, her fascination intensifies, and the subtle fear of losing you deepens. Remember, men who are fully understood are easily replaced. Men of mystery, layered complexity, and untamed depth create a quiet, psychological dominance. When she senses your unseen layers, she fears a world in which she cannot hold you completely. And in that fear, she becomes drawn, attentive, and eternally intrigued. Truth 5. Self-ownership is non-negotiable. The ultimate fear a woman can feel is the fear of losing a man who owns himself completely. Machiavelli understood that true power resides in mastery over one's own life. A man who is anchored in his principles, who makes decisions without seeking approval, and who refuses to compromise his identity, is irreplaceable. He is not a man to be manipulated, swayed, or controlled. That independence, that unwavering self-possession, ignites a quiet, visceral fear because she realizes that no amount of charm, influence, or effort can claim him entirely. Self-ownership is more than confidence. It is the refusal to make your life negotiable for anyone. It is the strategic declaration that your values, time, and ambitions are non-negotiable, and that your existence is full whether or not she is present. The moment a man establishes this, he shifts from being a participant in her desires to being the prize she cannot afford to lose. Consider the subtle difference between compliance and sovereignty. Men who bend, compromise, and constantly seek validation may be liked, but they are easily replaced. Men who act with unshakable principles, even when challenged, become objects of both desire and fear. The fear arises from the realization he cannot be controlled, he cannot be tamed. Losing him would mean losing something exceptional. Picture a man faced with an unreasonable demand from a woman, something that conflicts with his values or priorities. Instead of capitulating to please her, he calmly declines, not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty. He prioritizes his life, his goals, and his principles over immediate gratification or approval. She observes, and admiration grows, but it is inseparable from fear. Fear of losing someone so anchored, so untouchable, that her influence cannot sway him. That fear of ultimate loss is far more powerful than attraction born from neediness or charm. Practical action. Begin today by defining your boundaries with crystal clear clarity. Live as though she is a part of your world, but not the center of it. Prioritize your values, ambitions, and time above external pressures. Speak, act, and decide with unwavering sovereignty. The more untouchable you become, the more she senses that you cannot be taken for granted. Every decision you make independently communicates, I am my own man. My life is mine, and my presence is a privilege, not a given. Remember, men surrender themselves to be liked, to be desired, and to be controlled. Masters of attraction claim themselves first, and in doing so, create the ultimate psychological leverage. Self-ownership is not negotiable. It is magnetic, it is powerful, and it is the secret that ensures a woman fears losing you long before you say a single word. Remember this. Most men will never understand these truths. They will chase, they will beg, they will vanish into the background of a woman's life. You, however, now know a different path, the path of strategic presence, emotional mastery, and unshakable self-ownership. Women will not only notice you, they will feel the fear of losing you, the subtle tension that comes from knowing you cannot be owned or tamed. And that fear, that is power, that is respect, that is attraction that runs deeper than desire. It is psychological influence, and it is rare. Apply these truths, test them, and watch the dynamic shift. Your life becomes richer, your attention more selective, and your presence unforgettable. She will chase, she will question, she will hesitate, and all because you are a man who cannot be replaced. So go out there, implement one truth at a time, observe, adjust, and master the subtle art of making her fear a world without you. That is Machiavellian mastery in action.